Hello everybody. Today we're going to be looking at one of the new commanders from the Foundation set, that is Zul Ashur, Litch Lord. I've had a lot of fun with this card so far. I'm going to show you guys the mono black zombie deck that I've built around it. Thank you for clicking on this video, and let's go ahead and dive right into it. Alright, so first and foremost, we should take a look at our commander, Zul Ashur, Litch Lord herself. She is a legendary zombie warlock, 2 mana, 2/2 with ward, pay 2 life, and you can tap her to cast a zombie from your graveyard. Definitely not the most powerful commander when it comes to zombies, but she does synergize very well with a lot of the other cards in this deck. So we'll kind of break this down and look at the different card types. Hello everybody, my name is Mothman and welcome to my channel. Today I will be making my first YouTube video, which will be sharing the deck that I've made with Zul Ashur, Litch Lord, one of the new commanders from Foundations. Basically, I wanted to start this channel just as a way to share my fondness for Magic the Gathering and connect with others in the Magic the Gathering community. So hopefully you guys will be seeing more of me, and thank you for watching my video. It's only a 2 cost, so you can get it out pretty early. Next we have Phyrexian Altar. So it is a sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. This one is actually a 3 cost, but there is a pretty cool combo that you can do with Phyrexian Altar and Zul Ashur. We'll also have Ashnod's Altar. So Ashnod's Altar, 3 cost, sacrifice a creature, and add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Also have Thornbite Staff here. So if we equip this to Zul Ashur, basically the only part that we care about here is whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. So you do have to tap Zul Ashur to cast a zombie. If you have the Thornbright Staff, another one of your creatures dies, you can untap Zul Ashur with this artifact equipped. We also have the Wand of Orcus. So this is actually a fantastic artifact for any zombie decks. So whenever an equipped creature attacked or blocks, and it and zombies you control gain death touch until the end of turn. And whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. So just getting a bunch of zombie tokens on the board, fantastic strategy for any mono black zombie deck. We also have the Whip of Erebos in here. So creatures you control have lifelink. Basically it's just a way for us to gain life, especially if we put it on a zombie that has, you know, a pretty high power. Also going with Bantu's Monument, 3 cost, all black creature spells cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So once again, a little bit of life gain, but the main reason behind including Bantu's Monument is it further cuts the cost for all the spells in your deck. And then we also have Pact Weapon. Pact Weapon is an interesting one, and it's completely optional. I just threw it in here just kind of for fun. So as long as Pact Weapon is attached to a creature, you don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. Essentially, if you equip it to a creature, your life gets to 0, you don't lose the game. But as soon as Pact Weapon goes away, you lose the game. So next, let's go ahead and look at Enchantments. I've only included 2 of them in this deck, but we have Liliana's Mastery, which is a great enchantment for a zombie deck, so all zombies we control get +1/+1. Basically, it's just a way to ramp up the zombies that you have, and it doesn't specify if they're token or non-token, so all of your tokens will also get that +1/+1. Also, whenever it enters the battlefield, create 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, so just another way to get some more zombies on the board. We also have Open the Graves, so whenever a non-token creature I control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Once again, just a great way to get more zombies on the board. Zombies aren't the most powerful as far as power and toughness right out the gate, so being able to have them go into your graveyard through combat or through sacrifice, being able to create an additional creature, that 2/2 black zombie, and with Zul Ashur being able to tap her and recast the creatures that were just put into the graveyard is a pretty good strategy for just having a large board state. Next, we're going to go ahead and look at our sorceries. There are quite a few sorceries that I've included in this deck. Some of them are for the late game, but a lot of them can be played pretty much at any point in the game. So we'll go ahead and start off with Victimize. So, of course, choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature, then if you do, return those cards to the battlefield. So this is a great way to cheat out some of your more expensive or heavy hitting zombies at the cost of a creature. But once again, with Zul Ashur, Litch Lord's ability to cast zombie creature cards from our graveyard, essentially we're just removing a card from the battlefield and giving us a second way to play it. We also have Reanimate, which once again puts creature cards from our battlefield, from our graveyard onto the battlefield. We have Buried Alive, which essentially serves as a tutor for this deck. So we're able to go into our library, take cards out of our library, put them in the graveyard, and then cast them with Zul Ashur. We also have Demonic Tutor, so another tutor here, basically just letting us search our library for 1 card and putting it into our hand, and then Grim Tutor as well. So Grim Tutor works essentially the same as Demonic Tutor, except we lose 3 life. We also have some other sorceries here. So we have Feed the Swarm. Feed the Swarm is basically just a removal spell there, but we do lose life equal to the card's mana value that was removed. We have Sign in Blood, so target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. 2 life, not really that big of a deal, so essentially this is just card draw for us. And then we have Culling the Weak. So Culling the Weak, think of this more as like a dark ritual. You just sacrifice a creature, with which once again we can cast them with Zul Ashur, so not that big of a deal. But we sack a creature and then we add 4 black mana to our mana pool. And now for more of the late game stuff, we do have Damnation in here. So Damnation is a fantastic board wipe. We also have Toxic Deluge, so Toxic Deluge as an additional cost to cast this spell, pay X life. So essentially you're losing life, but knocking out however many life you pay of your opponent's creatures. We also have Army of the Damned, Zombie Apocalypse, and Rise of the Dark Realms. So essentially these are big heavy hitters, more for late in the game. As you can see, like Rise of the Dark Realms has a mana cost of 9, but it could be very, very powerful, especially if we have a card like Culling the Weak. We could play this maybe on like turn 5 or turn 4 instead of late game. But it is a sorcery. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. So that would be including your opponent's creatures, which is a great way to make a really, really big board state. For Army of the Damned, create 13 tapped 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, and you can flash this back from your graveyard. So 13 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. That's quite a bit to deal with. And Zombie Apocalypse is return all zombie creature cards from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped, then destroy all humans. The destroy all humans part really isn't that big of a deal, but being able to take all of our zombies and put them onto the battlefield all at once, that could be very dangerous for our opponents. Alright, starting to look at instants here. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Dark Ritual. Really good inclusion in almost any deck that has black or swamp in its color identity. It's pay 1, add 3 mana to your mana pool. We also have Cabal Ritual, so once again, this time it's pay 2, add 3 to your mana pool, but you can add 5 to your mana pool if you control, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, which should be pretty easy for us to attain. We also have Entomb, which serves as a great tutor, once again, just like some of the sorceries that we had. So basically you just search your card, or search your library for a specific card, put it into your graveyard, and then you can cast it later with Zul Ashur, or maybe one of the Lilianas that we talked about earlier. We also have Village Rites. So Village Rites is, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. So just another card draw. We have Murder, just a simple removal spell. Go for the Throat, same thing, just removal. And Hero's Downfall, just a cheap removal. Alright, next up, let's go ahead and look at Planeswalkers. I actually included 4 for this deck, which is a little different for me. I don't usually enjoy playing Planeswalkers, but these ones vibe very well with the deck. So first we have Liliana, Death Horde General, another card from Foundations. So she comes out with whenever a creature you control dies, you can draw a card, which is just a great card draw engine for us. And once again, that doesn't include tokens, it does include tokens. So if we have a bunch of zombie tokens on the field, we can draw cards basically endlessly as long as we continue to have tokens and creatures on the field. The +1 on this is to create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, which is fantastic. And then the -9 is each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. So basically a small board wipe, and then the -4 here is each player sacrifices 2 creatures of their choice, which really isn't that big of a deal for our zombie deck. Next we have Liliana, Des Majesty. The +1 is to once again create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, but also mill 2 cards, which once again, with Zul Ashur and some of the other cards in the deck, it doesn't really matter if we're milling cards or putting cards into our graveyard. Essentially, just think of your graveyard as a second library. So the -7 is to destroy all non-zombie creatures. Once again, just a great board wipe. Synergizes very well with the deck. We also have Liliana, the Last Hope. Sorry, it's not really focusing there. So Liliana, the Last Hope, for +1, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-1 until your next turn. Not the greatest. For -2, we have mill 2 cards, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So once again, kind of almost like a graveyard tutor. And then for -7, we get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So since we're going to have a lot of zombies in this deck, hopefully a lot of zombies out on the field, it also does not specify non-token zombies, so our zombie tokens count as well. this is just another way for us to gain a lot of tokens on the field and have a big presence on the board. And then last we have Liliana Untouched by Death. So +1, mill 3 cards. If at least one zombie creature card was milled this way, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This is fantastic for our deck, so we're basically just taking cards from our library, putting them in the graveyard, which we have the ability to draw from. And then we also get a little bit of life gain and do some tick damage to our opponents as well. For -3 is you may cast zombie spells from your graveyard this turn, which isn't too big of a deal since Zul Ashur has the same ability, but if she gets knocked out or if we haven't cast her yet, this is another route to pull from our graveyard. For -2, its target creature gets -X until the end of turn, where X is the number of zombies you control. Early game, that's going to be alright, but late game, if we have 30 some zombie creatures on the battlefield, you could do -30 to a really big heavy hitter that your opponent might control. You can't have a good zombie deck without a hefty list of zombies, so we'll go ahead and start off looking at some of those. We'll go ahead and start off with the really cheap zombies. So we have Crypt Breaker here, just 1 mana. It has an ability of pay 1 and a black, tap and discard a card, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. If we're discarding cards, it doesn't really matter. They're just going into the graveyard. We have plenty of ways to cast them. We also have Champion of the Perished, another great 1-cost 1/1 zombie. And for Champion of the Perished, whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under our control, I can put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of the Perished. So if we play a card that gives us 13 2/2 zombies, Champion of the Perished could get pretty big pretty quick. We also have Carrion Feeder. Carrion Feeder is a great card, 1-cost 1/1. It cannot block, but if we sacrifice a creature, we can put a +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder. It just basically serves as a sack outlet, and we can make Carrion Feeder larger and larger. We also have Gravecrawler. Gravecrawler is a fantastic card. So it is another 1-cost 2/1 zombie that cannot block, but I can cast Gravecrawler from our graveyard as long as you control another zombie. We'll obviously, hopefully have more zombies on the field, and Gravecrawler actually serves as a main component of one of the combos in this deck. We also have Stitcher's Supplier. It is a 1-cost 1/1 zombie. Basically, just whenever it enters the battlefield or dies, we need to mill 3 cards. Essentially, just moving cards from our library into our graveyard. Next, we'll go ahead and look at some of the heavy hitters in the deck as far as power and toughness are concerned. So we'll go ahead and start off with God Eternal Bantu. Bantu is a pretty good card. He has Menace. It's a 5-cost 5/6. Whenever it enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of permanents, then draw that many cards. So let's say we have 15 zombies on the field, but we have a horrible hand. We can just go ahead and put those zombies back into our graveyard, or a number of them in our graveyard, and draw that many cards. And whenever God Eternal Bantu dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, we can put it on top of our library, 3rd from the top. We also have Mikaeus the Unhallowed, pretty common card to see floating around in zombie decks. So it does have Intimidate, which means it can't be blocked except by black creatures or artifact creatures. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. That aspect doesn't really matter, but Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. So this is a great card for our deck. We also have Unhallowed Phalanx. This is essentially just a wall. It's a 5 cost. It's not the best card. I may end up taking it out, but it is a 1 power, 13 toughness card. So it can take some really heavy hits. We also have Rot Hulk, so another card with Menace. It is a 7 cost 5/5, but whenever it enters the battlefield, return X target zombie cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of opponents you have. So if you're playing, classic 4-person commander, you can take 3 of your zombies from your graveyard, put them into the battlefield without paying their mana cost. And we also have Persistent Constrictor in here, a 5 cost 5/3, and at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they lose 1 life and put a -1/-1 counter onto one of the creatures that they control, and it does have Persist. Alright, looking at some other cards here that boost the other zombies in our deck. So we have Undead Warchief. This is probably my favorite card in this deck as far as the zombies go. So zombie spells we cast cost 1 less to play, or just they cost 1 less to cast. But each zombie we control gets +2/+1. Fantastic card, and it works really well with cards like Lord of the Undead, which is other zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. Return a zombie card from our graveyard to our hand for 2 and tap. Tomb Tyrant, other zombies you control get +1/+1. Sacrifice a creature, return a zombie creature card at random from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only during our turn, and only if there are at least 3 zombies in our graveyard. We have Death Baron, so gives our zombies +1/+1 and Death Touch. Zombie Master gives all of our zombies pay 1 and regenerate, which is fantastic. Relentless Dead, so it has Menace, and when it dies, we can pay 1 mana, and if we do, return it to our hand, so we can just kind of infinitely play this card. And when it dies, we can pay X. If we do, return another zombie from our graveyard to the battlefield with a converted mana cost X. We have Cemetery Reaper, so once again another +1/+1. Diregraph Colossus enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each zombie in our graveyard. This can be a really good card. It's only a 3 cost 2/2, but if we have a bunch of zombies in our graveyards from all the sacrificing and from all the combat, this could be a very cheap, very large, heavy hitter. Also, whenever we cast a zombie, we can put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield, so another way for us to gain a bunch of tokens. And then last, we have Lord of the Accursed. So once again, just adding +1/+1 counters onto our zombies. And for 2, so for 1 and a black and tap, all zombies gain Menace until end of turn as well. And then just some random zombies in here that also serve the deck really well. We have Headless Rider, so whenever Headless Rider or another non-token zombie we control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, essentially just replacing its presence on the board with a 2/2 zombie. For Poxwalkers, they have Death Touch, and whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, return Poxwalkers from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So this is a great example of a card that rewards us for taking zombies from our graveyard, putting them onto the battlefield. Just like Tormund the Desecrator, so whenever one or more cards leave our graveyard, we can create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. And we also have Unstoppable Slasher in here. He has Death Touch. Whenever he deals combat damage, they lose half their life rounded up, so a really, really big threat to the opponents on the board. And whenever it dies, if it had no counters on it, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with 2 stun counters on it. So definitely a great card. So we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the combos that you can perform in this deck. So first we're going to need Liliana, Untouched by Death, and Phyrexian Altar. So what this requires is Liliana must be on the battlefield. Phyrexian Altar must also be on the battlefield. Liliana needs at least 3 loyalty counters on her. So how you do this is you activate Liliana's 3rd loyalty ability, which is you may cast zombie creature spells from your graveyard this turn. Then we need to activate Phyrexian Altar, which is sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. So we just need a simple card on the battlefield, so we can cast a card like Gravecrawler from our graveyard. If Phyrexian Altar is out as well, we can then sack Gravecrawler, but we can recast Gravecrawler because we can cast zombie spells from our graveyard this turn, and we have the 1 black mana from Phyrexian Altar. So essentially, since we sacked Gravecrawler, we can have a loop where we rebring in Gravecrawler, sack him again for 1 mana, and then rebring him in. There's actually a little more complicated way to do this. You just need Zul Ashur, Litch Lord out. You need Gravecrawler out on the battlefield, and we need our Thornbright Staff equipped to Zul Ashur. So, if you remember, the Thornbright Staff says whenever a creature card is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. So if we have Phyrexian Altar out, we have Gravecrawler in the graveyard, we can go ahead and tap Zul Ashur to bring out Gravecrawler. We can then sack Gravecrawler, putting it back in the graveyard, but untapping Zul Ashur, basically retap, cast, sacrifice, and it just continues on and on. There are a couple other combos in this deck, but this is probably the easiest to do, so we'll just focus on that one. But that's all I've got for our Zul Ashur Litch Lord Commander deck. This is my first YouTube video. I've wanted to do this kind of stuff for a while, so if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of the decks that I'll be bringing out, go ahead and subscribe. But I do thank you guys for just clicking on the video, and if you've made it to the end, thanks a lot.